Yes, I can help with Joshua Selman sermons. Apostle Joshua Selman is a Nigerian Christian minister, teacher, and founder of Koinonia. His sermons are widely known for their depth, strong scriptural foundations, and emphasis on spiritual growth, intimacy with God, destiny, leadership, and the ministry of the Holy Spirit. Beloved, welcome to this glorious Sunday, the 7th of December 2025. God has granted us the privilege of life, breath, and purpose, not by our power, but by His mercy. Each new day is an invitation, but a Sunday is a divine appointment. It is a call to align, to refocus, and to strengthen your walk with the Spirit. Today, as we lift our voices, we are not praying because we feel religious. We are praying because God responds to hunger. Anytime you see a man of prayer, you are seeing someone who has learned the secret of divine empowerment. Prayer is how you command spiritual authority. Prayer is how you sustain fire. Prayer is how you silence the voice of darkness. Prayer must be the foundation of every Sunday and the beginning of every new week, because it is the spiritual gateway through which you invite divine order into your life. Many people step into a new week carrying the weight of the previous one. Unresolved frustrations, silent anxieties, hidden fears, and uncertainties about what lies ahead. When you begin your Sunday without prayer, you are essentially walking into the unknown without spiritual preparation. But the moment you choose to begin your day with prayer, especially the first day of the week, you align your spirit with God's guidance, and the atmosphere around you begins to adjust to divine order. Prayer is not just speaking to God, it is allowing God to speak to you. It is the place where decisions are shaped, priorities are reordered, and the heart becomes sensitive to divine instructions. Many people underestimate how much influence spiritual climates have over their week. A person may enter a new week with good plans, strong goals, and clear intentions, but without prayer, these become vulnerable to unseen interruptions. Prayer creates a shield, a covering, and a spiritual advantage. It is the system that ensures you do not navigate life based only on logic or strength, but from a position of divine assistance. Starting your Sunday with prayer helps you reset spiritually. Throughout the week, life drains virtue out of you. Activities, interactions, problems, and responsibilities silently deplete your spiritual stamina. Sunday prayer becomes the refilling station where fresh grace is poured, new strength is infused, and clarity is restored. You cannot run on last week's strength. You cannot make this week's decisions with last week's revelation. Every new season requires fresh empowerment, and prayer is how you receive it. When you pray at the start of your week, you acknowledge that God is the source of everything you depend on. Favor, wisdom, protection, opportunities, and open doors. Prayer humbles the heart and reminds you that destiny is too big to be handled by human ability alone. It positions you to receive help from above. One moment of divine direction can save you from 10 years of struggle. One moment of divine favor can accomplish what your hands could not produce. Prayer makes this possible because it connects you to the realm where God speaks and instructs. There are invisible battles that words cannot solve, money cannot solve, and connections cannot solve. But prayer can. Many negative patterns that follow people from week to week are spiritual in nature. Prayer breaks cycles. It interrupts the agenda of darkness. It creates a barrier that the enemy cannot cross. When you begin your Sunday with prayer, you silently declare that the week ahead belongs to God and that no interference of darkness will prevail. Prayer becomes your insurance, your spiritual defense, and your guarantee that the unseen realm will work in your favor. Beginning your week with prayer also affects your mindset. It produces peace. It establishes confidence. It silences fear and anxiety. Some people are afraid of the future because they face it alone, but a praying person knows that God goes before them. Prayer creates the assurance that you are not entering the week empty. You are entering with grace, with divine backing, and with spiritual reinforcement. Finally, when prayer becomes the foundation of your Sundays, your entire life begins to experience order. You become more discerning, more spiritually sensitive, more intentional, and more empowered. Prayer at the start of the week is not just a religious action, it is a spiritual strategy. It is how you prepare for the invisible, how you plant seeds for the days ahead, and how you command the alignment of heaven over the affairs of your life. It is impossible to fail in a week that God Himself has gone ahead to prepare. Through Sunday prayer, you ensure that the rest of the week responds to divine grace, divine timing, and divine favor. Prayer is a divine system of alignment, bringing you back into fellowship and clarity with God, because human beings naturally drift. Throughout the week, pressures, distractions, emotions, and responsibilities pull the heart in many directions, often without you realizing it. Prayer becomes the place where you recalibrate, where your spiritual compass is reset, and where the noise around you is silenced so that the voice of God can be heard again. Without alignment, even sincere people make wrong choices, take unnecessary battles, and walk in paths that were never designed for them. But when you engage in prayer, your spirit begins to tune itself to the frequency of heaven, and suddenly what was confusing becomes clear, what was heavy becomes light, and what was hidden becomes revealed. Alignment means bringing your desires, thoughts, decisions, and motives under the influence of God's will. Many people pray only when they are in trouble, but genuine prayer is not just asking God for things. It is allowing God to adjust you internally. There are attitudes that need correction, priorities that need rearrangement, and burdens that need lifting. In prayer, God does not only change situations, He changes you. He enlightens your spirit, purifies your intentions, and strengthens your convictions. When a person remains prayerful, you can almost feel the fragrance of heaven upon them. Their words carry peace, their decisions carry wisdom, and their steps carry clarity. Clarity is one of the greatest gifts that prayer gives. Life becomes complicated when you cannot discern what is right or wrong, where to go, who to trust, or what to invest your time and energy into. Confusion is dangerous because it wastes seasons. A person can be talented, gifted, and sincere, yet waste years simply because they lacked clarity. Prayer opens the eyes of the Spirit. It removes the veil that covers understanding. It grants the kind of inner knowing that does not come from experience or intelligence, but from fellowship with God. Suddenly, the path becomes clear, not because the circumstances changed, but because your perspective aligned with God's. Fellowship with God is the place where identity is strengthened. The world constantly tries to redefine you through failures, achievements, opinions, and expectations. But in the place of prayer, God reaffirms who you are. You are reminded that you are not alone, not ordinary, and not without help. This awareness changes how you approach challenges. Instead of fear, there is confidence. Instead of panic, there is peace. Instead of confusion, there is direction. Fellowship produces assurance, an assurance that you are walking with God and God is walking with you. Alignment also deals with the heart. Sometimes the problem is not external, the real battle is internal. Hurt, anger, discouragement, and disappointment distort spiritual perception. Prayer heals the heart and restores spiritual focus. It empties the soul of clutter and replaces it with strength. It is in prayer that burdens melt, Tears turn to strength, and weariness transforms into renewed zeal. Many breakthroughs do not come because situations changed, but because prayer adjusted the inner man to a place where he could receive. Furthermore, alignment through prayer ensures that your decisions carry the weight of divine backing. When you are aligned with God, your choices are no longer random, they are guided. Your steps are no longer guesses, they are ordered. You begin to sense what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. Opportunities that used to pass you suddenly become visible. Doors that were once closed begin to respond. This is because alignment makes your spirit synchronized with the timing and movements of God. In essence, prayer is the system God designed to keep you on the path of destiny. Without it, even the strongest drift away. With it, even the weakest stay anchored. Alignment is not achieved by wishing, it is achieved by communion. And prayer is the bridge that connects your heart back to the heartbeat of God. God responds to hunger, because spiritual hunger is the truest proof of desire. In the realm of the spirit, God does not merely respond to need. He responds to the longing of the heart. Many people have needs, but not everyone is hungry. Needs can create complaints, but hunger creates pursuit. Hunger is the posture that attracts the presence, power, and attention of God. When a person is hungry for God, it shows in their attitude, in their prayer life, in their discipline, and in their willingness to seek Him beyond convenience. Hunger is the force that drives a person to pray when tired, worship when discouraged, and seek God even when others are distracted. It is impossible for a truly hungry person to remain empty. Spiritual hunger is proof that your heart has recognized its true source. The soul of man was designed with a void that only God can fill. When you feel a stirring inside, a longing for deeper fellowship, a dissatisfaction with your current level, that is not ordinary emotion. It is a spiritual signal that God wants to draw you closer. Hunger is the magnet that pulls the supernatural into your natural life. Many times, divine encounters, revelations, and breakthroughs are not accidental. They are rewards for hunger. Hunger is powerful because it breaks complacency. The danger in spiritual life is not ignorance, but becoming comfortable. When a person becomes comfortable, they stop growing, stop stretching, and stop seeking. Hunger pushes you beyond the limits of mediocrity. It makes you dissatisfied with yesterday's experience. Hunger says, there must be more. And God always answers the cry for more. In scripture and in life, every man who rose to unusual dimensions with God carried an unusual hunger. Hunger to know Him, hunger to hear Him, hunger to walk in His will. God responds to hunger because it is proof of sincerity. Hunger cannot be faked. It shows inconsistency. When someone is truly hungry for God, they do not wait for a convenient time to pray. They create one. They do not wait for the perfect atmosphere to worship. They carry the atmosphere within. They do not wait for a crisis to seek God. They seek Him because they know that He is the only well that never runs dry. Hunger transforms ordinary people into vessels of power and influence. It turns weak men into warriors and silent men into prophets. Hunger is the fuel for spiritual pursuit. A person may desire success, favor, or breakthrough, but without hunger for God, the pursuit becomes shallow. God is not impressed by religious activities. He responds to the heart behind them. When your heart is genuinely yearning, you will find God in places others ignore. You will hear His voice in whispers others overlook. You will see His hand in moments others call coincidence. Hunger sharpens your sensitivity and awakens your spiritual senses. Moreover, hunger is the foundation of encounter. Encounters are not random, they are invitations. A hungry heart draws divine visitation. When God sees a heart yearning for him, he reveals himself in ways that transform the person forever. Hunger opens the door to revelation, wisdom, and deep spiritual experiences. It takes you beyond surface level Christianity into realms of intimacy and authority. God also responds to hunger because hunger is the sign that you value his presence. God does not impose himself on anyone. He waits to be sought. He waits for the heart that says, Lord, I want you more than comfort, more than people's validation, more than my own plans. When your desire for God becomes stronger than your desire for anything else, you position yourself for unusual grace. In the end, hunger is the currency of the Spirit. As long as you remain hungry, you will never stop growing. As long as your heart keeps yearning, heaven keeps opening. Hunger is the pathway to depth, to power, and to a life that carries the fragrance of God. You cannot conquer a week you did not start with God, because every week carries its own set of battles, opportunities, temptations, and decisions that cannot be navigated by human strength alone. Life is spiritual, and the outcomes we see in the physical often originate from realms we cannot see. When someone steps into a new week without consciously involving God, they are essentially stepping into a battlefield without armor, guidance, or reinforcement. But when you begin the week with God, you secure divine clarity and empowerment that give you an advantage over whatever the week may bring. Starting a week with God means acknowledging that you are not the master of your destiny, God is. It means admitting that your wisdom is limited, your vision is restricted, and your ability is imperfect. No matter how skilled or intelligent a person may be, life has a way of presenting unexpected challenges. Some battles are not visible. Some attacks are not physical. Some doors will not open no matter how hard you knock unless God goes before you. Prayer at the start of the week ensures that you are not walking blind or walking alone. When you begin your week with God, you invite his presence into your schedule, activities, relationships, and decisions. The presence of God is not just a spiritual feeling. It is a shield, an atmosphere, and a force that influences outcomes. The presence of God opens doors that should not open and closes doors that would have harmed you. It attracts the right people and repels the wrong ones. It creates favor where there should be none. There are people you will meet this week, some sent by God, some sent by darkness. Without prayer, you may embrace what you should avoid and avoid what you should embrace. But when God goes before you, he positions the right people on your path and removes the ones who would have distracted you. Prayer at the beginning of the week is also a declaration of authority. It is saying, this week will not control me. I will control this week by God's grace. Many people live reactively. They respond to problems as they arise. But a praying person lives proactively. They take charge in the spirit before stepping into the physical. By praying ahead, you silence storms before they rise, cancel attacks before they manifest, and command alignment before confusion sets in. When you start your week with God, you also sharpen your sensitivity. Many times God speaks, but people cannot hear because their hearts are overwhelmed by noise and distraction. The first day of the week is the best time to tune your spirit, to filter your mind, and to receive divine updates. A single instruction from God can change the entire outcome of your week. He may warn you about something, lead you toward an opportunity, or remind you of a step you must take. Prayer opens you up to divine intelligence, and divine intelligence is the greatest advantage in life. Beginning the week with God also releases peace. Peace is not the absence of trouble, it is the presence of God in the midst of it. Even if challenges arise, You face them from a place of assurance, not anxiety. You know that you are not fighting alone. You know that God has gone ahead of you. You know that your steps are ordered and your path is guided. This confidence changes how you respond to challenges. Finally, starting the week with God is a spiritual investment. What you do spiritually at the beginning of the week echoes through every day that follows. It becomes a seed that multiplies into grace, wisdom, strength, and favor. A week that begins with God becomes a week that ends in testimony, because whatever God starts, God sustains, and God completes. Every true prayer creates spiritual momentum and releases divine empowerment, because prayer is not just communication. It is a spiritual transaction. Whenever you pray sincerely, something shifts within you and around you, even if you do not feel it immediately. Prayer stirs the realm of the spirit, and the results often show up in ways that people cannot logically explain. Momentum is created when consistent spiritual actions accumulate force. And prayer is one of the strongest forces that generates that momentum. A praying person may start slowly, but over time their spirit becomes strengthened. Their inner man becomes fortified, and their atmosphere becomes charged with divine energy. Spiritual momentum means you rise above stagnation. It means you no longer remain lukewarm or spiritually weak. Many believers struggle not because they are not sincere, but because they lack momentum. They pray once and stop. They study the word once and stop. They start strong and then get tired. But when prayer becomes consistent, it builds an inner force that keeps you moving even on days when you feel like quitting. Momentum makes you spiritually unstoppable. It becomes difficult for darkness to influence you because your spirit is constantly stirred. Momentum transforms prayer from an activity into a lifestyle. And at that point, you no longer need to push yourself. Your spirit begins to draw you into prayer automatically. Every time you pray, you accumulate spiritual energy. Just like a person exercising gathers physical strength over time, a person who prays gathers spiritual strength. This strength shows in the way you think, the way you speak, and the way you handle situations. Circumstances that used to overwhelm you begin to shrink in your eyes. Fear loses its grip. Anxiety melts away. Discouragement has less influence. This is because prayer builds spiritual stamina. It empowers your inner man to stand firm regardless of what is happening around you. Divine empowerment means receiving strength, wisdom, and ability from God that you do not naturally possess. There are assignments, decisions, and responsibilities in life that exceed human ability. Some challenges require more than intelligence or experience. They require grace. When you pray, God supplies this grace. He empowers you with ideas you never thought of, patience you did not know you had, and courage you did not realize was possible. Empowerment makes difficult things possible and impossible things achievable. Prayer also releases empowerment because it connects you to the Holy Spirit, the source of all spiritual power. Without prayer, you may carry potential, but lack activation. Prayer activates gifts, stirs callings, sharpens discernment, and awakens spiritual authority. Many people carry great destinies, but never access their full potential simply because they lack a prayer life strong enough to unlock what God placed in them. Empowerment comes when you stay long enough in the presence of God for His strength to saturate your weakness. Furthermore, prayer releases divine empowerment by shifting atmospheres. There are environments that limit, suppress, or weaken people, but prayer charges the atmosphere. It creates a spiritual climate where miracles, favor, and breakthroughs become natural. When you pray, you release God's presence into your home, your mind, your emotions, and your daily activities. This presence empowers you to think clearly, walk boldly, and make decisions with confidence. Momentum also affects your spiritual authority. A person who prays consistently commands more power in the spirit than someone who prays occasionally. Consistency builds authority, and authority produces results. When you speak, your words carry weight. When you decree, things respond. When you resist darkness, it flees. This is because momentum deepens your spiritual roots, and deep roots guarantee stability and strength. In conclusion, every true prayer session is an investment that multiplies into momentum and empowerment. Even when you feel nothing, something is happening. Each prayer builds upon the last, creating a force that propels your life forward and keeps you aligned with divine strength. Prayer makes you spiritually sharp, mentally stable, emotionally strong, and divinely empowered to conquer challenges and fulfill destiny. God is near, God hears, and God answers. Prayer is never wasted, because every sincere cry to God leaves the realm of your lips and enters the realm of the Spirit, where it begins to shape outcomes. Many people struggle with prayer, not because they do not want to pray, but because they are unsure whether God is truly listening. Yet one of the greatest assurances a believer can carry is the understanding that God is not distant, indifferent, or silent. He is near to the broken, near to the seeking, near to the hungry, near to the humble. His nearness is not determined by feelings, it is anchored in his nature. Even in moments when you feel alone, abandoned, or overwhelmed, his presence surrounds you in ways the physical senses cannot measure. God's nearness means he is not watching you from a far distance. He is involved. He is attentive. He is aware of the deepest struggles you cannot express to anyone else. Prayer becomes powerful when you know you are not praying to a silent sky, but to a present God. This awareness produces confidence and boldness. When you know God is near, you pray with expectation, not fear. You pray with assurance, not doubt. You pray with faith, not uncertainty. His nearness is what turns prayer from a ritual into a relationship. God not only draws near, he hears. Every whispered request, every silent tear, every heart cry is recorded in heaven. Sometimes people think God hears only long prayers, loud prayers, or perfectly structured prayers. But God hears sincerity more than eloquence. He hears desperation more than volume. He hears the heart more than the voice. Even when your words fail and you do not know what to say, God reads the language of your spirit. He hears what your mouth cannot articulate. There are moments in life when you cannot explain your pain or confusion, but your sigh becomes a prayer and God hears it. God hearing does not always mean God answering instantly. Hearing is his promise. Answering is his timing. When God hears, he begins processes, some instant, some gradual, some invisible, some dramatic, but none of them are accidental. God does not ignore his children. Many times, the answers come in ways you do not recognize, because God responds not just to your request, but to your destiny. His answers bring long-term benefit, not temporary relief. He answers with wisdom, not impulse. He answers with understanding, not emotion. And because he sees the full picture, his timing is always perfect, even when it feels delayed. God answers prayer in different ways, sometimes with yes, sometimes with no, sometimes with not yet, and sometimes with something far better than what was asked. His answers protect you, guide you, shape you, and lead you. There are moments when you look back and thank God for the prayers he did not grant immediately, because his denial was actually your preservation. This is why prayer is never wasted, because God never receives a prayer and leaves you the same. Something always shifts, even if you cannot see it at first. Every prayer is a seed. Some seeds sprout quickly, others take time, but each one carries life. When you pray, you are sowing into your future. You are aligning your path to divine wisdom. You are inviting God into places where He can correct, reorder, and restore. Even when you don't feel anything during prayer, something is happening beyond the veil of the natural. Your faith is being built. Your heart is being strengthened. Your atmosphere is changing. You are becoming more sensitive to God's leading. In the end, knowing that God is near, hears, and answers gives prayer its power. It means you never pray alone, never pray in vain, and never pray into emptiness. Every prayer becomes a bridge between earth and heaven, and every sincere cry causes God to move, to speak, and to orchestrate outcomes in your favor. Prayer is never wasted because God never ignores the voice of His child. Starting your day and week in prayer invites direction, peace, and favor into your destiny, because the first moments of a new day or a new week are spiritually significant. They act as gates, entry points through which either divine order or confusion can flow. When you dedicate these early moments to God, you are essentially handing Him the steering wheel of your life. You are saying, "Lead me, guide me, cover me." Prayer at the beginning is an act of surrender. And surrender is what opens the door for divine direction. A person who begins with prayer does not walk blindly. They walk with spiritual insight that gives them an advantage others cannot see. Direction is one of the greatest gifts prayer provides. Life is full of decisions, some small, some life-changing. Without direction, even well-intentioned people make costly mistakes. Many enter relationships they were never meant to enter, invest in things they were never meant to invest in, and walk through doors that lead to pain rather than progress. But when you begin your week with prayer, you invite God to instruct you. He speaks through impressions, through peace, through warnings, through clarity, and sometimes through silence that pushes you to wait. One clear instruction from God can save you from years of struggle. Prayer sharpens discernment, and discernment ensures that you do not walk into traps disguised as opportunities. Prayer also brings peace, not the kind of peace the world gives, which depends on circumstances, but the peace that comes from knowing your life is in God's hands. People carry invisible burdens: fear of the future, concerns about family, anxiety about finances, pressure from responsibilities, uncertainty about decisions. When you begin your day in prayer, these burdens lose their power. The presence of God calms the soul, quiets fear, and stabilizes the heart. Suddenly, things that seemed overwhelming become manageable, because prayer shifts your focus from the problem to the one who solves it. Peace allows you to think clearly, act wisely, and move confidently through the week. Starting the week with prayer also aligns your emotions. Many battles are emotional rather than physical. A person may enter the week already discouraged, angry, or exhausted. Prayer resets the heart. It washes away negativity, renews hope, and strengthens the inner man. You walk into the week lighter, clearer, and more grounded. Emotional clarity is a spiritual advantage, because a person with a stable heart makes better decisions, handles challenges with wisdom, and remains steady when others fall apart. Then there is favor, the divine influence that causes things to work in your advantage. Favor is not luck. It is the supernatural endorsement of God. It opens doors no man can shut. It brings helpers you did not search for. It positions you in opportunities you did not qualify for. Favor is what separates effort from results. Many people work hard, but see little progress because favor is missing. But when you start your week with prayer, you activate this divine fragrance. People respond differently to you. Circumstances shift in subtle but meaningful ways. What was difficult suddenly becomes achievable. What was slow begins to accelerate. Favor turns ordinary moments into breakthroughs. Beginning the day or week with prayer also helps you walk with spiritual awareness. You become sensitive to divine signals, when to move, when to wait, when to speak, when to be silent. You sense danger before it arrives. You sense opportunities before they fully appear. This awareness prevents unnecessary battles and positions you where grace is flowing. Ultimately, starting your day and week with prayer is about partnership with God. You are not trying to live life by your own strength. You are inviting God to take the lead. And when God leads, you cannot be lost. When God guides, you cannot be confused. When God covers, no weapon formed against you will prosper. Prayer at the beginning is the seed that produces direction, peace, and favor throughout the entire week, shaping your decisions, stabilizing your heart, and positioning your life for divine outcomes.